Hi, tenant relations. I want to say a few things about tenant relations. It is a very important aspect to property management. Obviously, you've got to get along with the tenants, whether it's commercial or residential. The first thing I want to talk about is the move-in, move-out checklist in preparation um, for the paperwork in a residential tenancy. So when they move in, we want them to fill out a move-in, move-out checklist. The left-hand half of this form is going to have items in the home listed, and they will have the opportunity to mark or take note of anything in the home that is not correct, so that when they move out, we can compare that, and then we will charge them on a security deposit to fix it if it's not on the left-hand side. If we find something on the right-hand side that's listed on the left-hand side, then obviously it was there when they moved in and they would not be charged on their security deposit. So this is the move-in, move-out checklist. It's a very good tool in helping to determine what damage was actually done by the tenant. So the chapter talks a lot about the important things in the tenant relation. One of the most important things is to have a clear understanding of the lease terms. What I like to do is I like to go through that lease with a highlighter, and the things that are important to me I like to highlight, or I like to emphasize at the tenant at the time of the lease signing. We talked about before the manager's personal efforts and what a big impact that can have on the success of the tenant and the landlord relationship. Soliciting the tenant input is one thing that the book talks about, and a way of a survey or something like that. I will caution you, if you're going to do that, you have to be careful, because the tenants are always going to ask you for very similar things. They'll always ask you for rent reduction. They'll ask you for a lot of amenities that you may not be able to provide. So my caution in this, while I'm not discounting it and saying that you shouldn't do it, I would just caution you that you may wait until you have some resources in order to do some things that they ask. There's an old saying, let the sleeping dog lie. If you don't ask them, maybe they won't think about it. So I would caution you at these soliciting their input too much if you're not prepared to actually give them some of the things they ask for. It talks about newsletters. One of the things that we've seen a lot more on are the electronic newsletters, the email newsletters, which saves a ton of money. My caution there is I don't think that they get the degree of readership that an old-fashioned paper newsletter would receive. So that's another way to communicate with your tenants, is through a newsletter, whether quarterly, monthly, annually, however you want to do that. The last thing that we talk about in there in that section is cultivating a sense of pride. We talked about that, and I talked about when I moved to Fort Worth and my property manager had parties. We played volleyball against other apartments. She policed the area very nicely. So lots of things like that she did to generate or cultivate that sense of pride. One of the really obvious things when it comes to tenant relationships is handling maintenance requests. This is the number one thing that tenants will tell you in surveys, is that they want and expect out of their landlord is to handle maintenance requests. So the first thing to making these successful is having them in writing. So we want to get these in writing. Personally, I like to have them either emailed or texted to me so that I can literally forward that same text or email to my repair person. It just helps me to get it there efficiently, effectively, and quickly, because speedy response time is one of the things that's very important in fixing these maintenance issues. I want to caution you here on excessive demands. A lot of tenants, whether they're lonely, they're bored, whatever the case may be, they may require excessive demands upon your time and your resources that frankly don't need attention. So I would caution you to watch for those particular tenants. We need to talk, or at least say something about the role of maintenance personnel. Many times personnel need to be supervised. And one of the things I want to caution you about is their behavior, the way they act in a property around your tenants. You need to understand that that maintenance person is a representative of you when they go in that home. They need to be somebody you trust, and you need to know how they're going to act around that person. Okay, so just a caution to know a little bit about these maintenance people whenever they're going to go in the home, particularly a home that's going to be empty, and so we want to know a little bit about these particular maintenance personnel when they enter our homes to do maintenance. Rent collection is a very, very important thing when it comes to tenant relations. We want to be very clear on when it's due and where they need to pay it. One of the things that we've done that's been a major help in our property management company is we require online payment. This prevents me from having to collect it, and it prevents the old lost in the mail event. So I would highly recommend that you consider these electronic payment services. They're very inexpensive, very efficient, and it's a great way to get your rent more efficiently, quicker, and just an all-around better situation in tracking. We need to encourage prompt payment. We do that with late fees. Late fees are the most effective way to get proper payment. I would encourage you to consider a per day fee as well as a late fee. So maybe a $25 or $50 late fee plus a $5 a day fee, so that they will get it to you just as soon as possible and not put you in the queue behind some other payment. Billing notices are not something that we generally do that much of. Sometimes we do it in mini storages and that type of thing, but we don't use it too much in any other type of property. The value of lease renewals cannot be emphasized enough. I like to tell my people, in class I like to do a little analysis and kind of show them what the expenses are when we turn over a unit. And when I do that analysis, it pretty much comes out that you can't make money on a one-year lease, or it's very difficult to make money on a one-year lease. You really need to re-sign that person for a second year. And then I feel like you start making money about the 18th month when you really look at the turnover costs of rekeying, cleaning carpets, touch-up paint, transferring utilities, taking care of the yard, those types of things. I feel like you really need to get 18 months out of a lease in order to really make money on it. Well, that being the case, the fact that they're very important, you may want to consider some kind of bargaining factors and some concessions that we've already talked about in the past. If it should be necessary to terminate, or if ending a lease should require 30 days notice. You want to know 30 days if a person is not going to renew their lease. So I would try to get that 30 days notice. Likewise, if you're not going to renew somebody's lease, you need to give them 30 days notice so that they can find a place to rent. Rent increases are a fact of life. Property taxes increase, insurance increases, all these different expenses to you increase typically annually, if not before. So we have to be prepared to raise our rent on an annual basis or semi-annual basis, or however it is that you do that. You need to think about raising rents, because pretty quickly, if you don't raise rents, you're going to get caught up in a situation where your expenses continue to outpace your rents. Terminating the tenancy is never fun. Typically, when we terminate a tenancy or evict somebody, we're doing so because they are of a failure to meet the obligations of their lease. This is never a pleasant activity. We want to try to do this without court. But if you are managing a property for an owner, you may have a fiduciary obligation to try, to every extent that you have, to get paid on that lease. That may require you going to court. I would encourage you to look at the state statutes that you're in to try to find out what is exactly required, how much notice is required, and the procedure in that particular county or state in which you're in. So that's the eviction type process, and the book has a lot to say about that, and I'll allow you to take a look at that. Appreciate your attention. Thank you.